This guy bet everything he owned, going all in on a resurrection stone to get an immortal body. But every time his infinite resurrection skill activates, a random survival stat gets deducted as a transaction fee. Just like that, he went from an already weak player straight to rock bottom. We find our guy, Yoshito, running for his life from a high-level elite demon. Yoshito shakily stands up, sword in hand. This feeling of being tormented and looked down on, others might find it thrilling, but for him, it just sucks. Yoshito points his blade at the demon. I will never give up, even if I'm laughed at or abandoned by this disgusting world. There was no other choice but to keep charging forward. That surge of power you get in a life or death moment that lets you turn the tables? Yeah, that stuff only happens in stories. The elite demon just flicks its finger, sending Yoshito flying like a piece of useless trash. It hurts so much, Yoshito cries. Damn it. He thought going all out at the end would mean a big payoff, but instead, he just got completely stomped. The elite demon gathers a massive amount of power, firing a destructive beam of light right at Yoshito. I don't know if it was just his dumb luck or if his ancestors were working overtime, but the demon aimed at the ground. The impact shattered the earth, and Yoshito went down with it. Turns out the elite demon didn't miss. It intentionally wanted Yoshito to suffer the most painful death possible. Yoshito screamed as he fell into the deep abyss. The system announced, "You have died." The story begins when the magic towers appeared. These mysterious structures, beyond human comprehension, were known simply as towers, and they suddenly appeared all over the world. The inside of these towers was like a world straight out of a dungeon novel. It was like a game, complete with magic weapons, skills, and even monsters. Inside, the magic towers were magic stones and forgotten treasures of immense value. The people who sought these treasures were called challengers. They brought back treasures and exchanged them for cash, living lives like famous celebrities. However, not everything was that easy. All challengers faced an all-or-nothing risk, because dying inside the tower meant dying in real life. It wasn't a game where you could just die, respawn, and start over. But among them, there was one exception, Yoshito. He opened his lifeless, empty eyes. I died again. Yoshito clutched his head, not knowing what to do. Things weren't supposed to turn out like this. Yoshito had a skill called infinite resurrection. No matter how many times or how he died in the tower, he could always come back to life. Sounds pretty OP, but Yoshito had been scammed. After graduating high school, his life was a boring cycle of eating, sleeping, and working part-time jobs. After the towers appeared, Yoshito thought his life would finally take off, just like a main character, if he became a challenger. So, Yoshito quit his part-time job and fought every single day to get his hands on magic stones and treasure. He tried to get a rare skill through a skill stone, which allowed people to obtain special abilities. That's when he met a pyramid scheme type dude hanging around the tower entrance. The guy was selling the infinite resurrection stone, so Yoshito didn't hesitate to pull out all his savings, even taking out loans to buy it. After that, Yoshito had an immortal body, but every time he revived, the death penalty was applied. His stats would be permanently reduced. To date, Yoshito had died and been revived 4 times. The first time, his defense was reduced by 50 points, when its original value was only 53. Thanks to that, he died again from a single hit. The second time, he lost 70 attack points, and the third time, half his HP. The stat penalty was random every time. This time, it was his agility. He only had 61 points, and it took away 60. Inside the tower, your physical body is based on your character stats. If your agility drops, your body becomes heavier. Eventually, Yoshito wouldn't be able to move at all, which meant he wouldn't be able to continue as a challenger. Yoshito's future was a mountain of debt, trapped in a vicious cycle by a worthless skill. This time, Yoshito opened his eyes again. He couldn't even tell if he was alive or dead, but his heavy body was proof that his agility stat had dropped again. It was going to be extremely difficult for him to move around. Yoshito remembered falling somewhere. It should have been the lowest floor, but this place looked completely unfamiliar. Yoshito cautiously looked around. A super rare, golden skill stone caught his eye. He didn't care what skill it was. As long as he had it, Yoshito could sell it and pay off his debt. I have to get that, no matter what. Yoshito found the motivation to stand up again. There were no monsters around, so he was sure this time, victory would be his. Asterisk thunk. Asterisk. Yoshito's first step landed on a hidden pressure plate. A honeycomb wall suddenly appeared, shooting out sharp daggers. Dozens of them pierced deep into Yoshito's body, causing him immense pain. Once again, Yoshito croaked, and he was resurrected by permanently losing 65 points of strength. Yoshito gasped for air. Death came at him like a roller coaster. He looked down, seeing the daggers and his own blood staining the floor. He knew it was a trap, but that alone wasn't about to stop him. His body felt heavy, hard to move. His strength was draining away. Yoshito wearily leaned on the wall to stay upright. Asterisk, click asterisk. Talk about bad luck. He had just accidentally triggered a second trap. This time, a giant statue appeared, its mouth gaping open as it unleashed a torrent of fire. It turned Yoshito into a charred steak. He revived again, but his stats were docked 250 points after getting through just 2 traps. Yoshito had now memorized how to avoid them. He finally understood why this narrow passage existed. It baited challengers, with the promise of a rare skill, only to efficiently eliminate them with traps. A normal person would never make it through. But Yoshito was different. He might be the weakest guy in this tower, but he had more lives to spare than anyone. So, Yoshito charged forward, knowing full well there were more traps ahead. A massive blade dropped from the ceiling, followed by powerful bolts of lightning, striking out from nowhere. Yoshito didn't even know how many times he'd died or how many skill points he'd lost. His body went numb, and his vision blurred. Even with his revivals, his consciousness felt like it was fading away. However, Yoshito's insane persistence paid off. He grabbed the rare skill stone like a trophy and finally passed out. The system asked Yoshito if he wanted to use the skill stone, but since he was unconscious, it was automatically activated. Yoshito acquired the reversal skill. His eyes suddenly shot open as if he'd just woken from a long dream. He still remembered it. The feeling of his strength and consciousness slowly slipping away. Yoshito immediately opened his status window to check. He was shocked. All the negative effects he had received until now had turned into positive ones. The system announced he had acquired a new skill. The reversal skill could flip everything buffs, debuffs, and any other status effect. So that's what happened. Thanks to this skill, all the permanent debuffs Yoshito had been stacking were now converted into positive buffs. But Yoshito wondered where he got this strange skill from. His eyes fell on the rare skill stone, which had now turned to dust, because it had been used automatically. Yoshito was gutted. That was the money he was going to use to pay off his debt. Still, maybe this wasn't such a bad thing. If all the penalties from his infinite resurrections were converted by reversal, then Yoshito would only get stronger. Every time he died. Yoshito's hope for the future was reignited. He could reach the top, make a ton of money, and gain the same fame as a real celebrity. But first, Yoshito wondered how he was supposed to get back. This narrow passage was lined with dozens of deadly traps, and it was the only way out. They would activate again the moment he stepped on a hidden stone. So, that meant Yoshito had to use the same old method to get through? Just die and revive all the way back? No way. Even if he could resurrect, the pain was still real. If he kept dying over and over, he'd straight up lose his mind. Yoshito shuddered. But then he remembered his stats were now doubled thanks to reversal. Maybe he could actually get through these traps now. Yoshito swallowed hard. In any case, it was the only way, so he had to try. He shot forward like a bullet. Yoshito had never felt so light on his feet. A trap sprung, and spears shot out from the honeycomb-patterned walls, flying right at him. Their speed was insane, but Yoshito felt like he could clearly see the path of every single one. He zipped past them like a flash of lightning and landed safely. The next trap appeared a grid of lightning bolts, but Yoshito was even faster than before. He felt like he hadn't even reached his limit yet. The guillotine blade from above was way too slow for him now. Next up, the stone dragon appeared, its mouth open to breathe fire. Yoshito opened his inventory and pulled out a sword, shattering the stone statue before it even had a chance to attack. And finally, the very first trap daggers from all directions. Yoshito used the sword in his hand to block every dagger that flew at him. He finally made it back to where he started, without a single scratch. Infinite resurrection was a death penalty, docking a massive amount of his stats, but reversal turned that penalty into a massive buff. After testing his newfound power, Yoshito truly believed that one day, he would become the strongest challenger. Now, it was time to go up. Yoshito had fallen from a terrifying height. For the old him, climbing back up from the bottom would have been impossible, but he was a completely different person now. Yoshito bent his knees and used the narrow path to launch himself upwards. He shot up from below like a bolt of lightning. Sorry to keep you waiting. The elite demon advanced toward him. Yoshito clearly remembered their first encounter. Want to try killing me again? Yoshito's taunt made the demon roar. It couldn't believe its prey had not only revived, but was now even stronger. Fine. You want to play? Let's see how long your one life lasts against my infinite ones. The elite demon got into a fighting stance and threw a punch at Yoshito. Our guy easily dodged to the side instead of getting his ass handed to him like before. The feeling of this sudden stat boost was absolutely insane. Yoshito could now literally dance circles around this thing. The demon roared in anger after getting its arm slashed, but its attacks weren't a threat to Yoshito anymore. Our guy flicked the elite demon back, sending it flying into a wall. This is my win, Yoshito thought. But it wasn't over. A blinding light flashed from the demon's spot. Another devastating attack shot out. It was pissed, it missed. Yoshito almost died, again, but dodged just in time. He'd noticed something for a while now. This elite demon was nothing like the monsters supposed to be on the 3rd floor. The higher you climb the tower, the stronger the monsters get. Right now, he was on floor 3, which should only have low-level mobs. Suddenly, the elite demon sprouted a pair of wings. It clapped its massive wings together like giant hands, and Yoshito leaped into the air to dodge. Maybe this demon was way stronger than the other climbers around, which is why he got to fight it. A powerful demon that nobody had ever heard of. Yoshito kept clashing swords with it, but it seemed like the demon had gotten even stronger. "What the hell are you?" he yelled. Of course, it couldn't answer Yoshito's question. It couldn't speak. It probably didn't even understand him. It just seemed confused because its enemy suddenly got ridiculously strong. This was the final showdown. This time, the demon used both its arms to summon magic. This was getting annoying. The magic slowly turned red, feeling completely different from its usual purple light. It conjured red magic staves. Yoshito realized it was finally going all out. The demon launched lightning bolts at Yoshito. They rained down like high-speed meteors. Damn it. Yoshito cursed while dodging. The demon was right on his tail, swinging down with its newly created weapon. The impact shattered the ground. Yoshito managed to block it with his sword, feeling like victory was right there for the taking. But he was wrong. The demon's right arm was summoning another bomb, and just like that, Yoshito's head was blown clean off. He died again. Infinite Resurrection permanently decreased his strength by 40 points, but the debuff was about to get flipped. Thanks to Reversal, that became a plus 40-point boost. The demon retracted its wings, thinking it had won, but Yoshito rose up and attacked from behind. Like a ghost. How dare you kill me? Even if I can revive, it still hurts, you know. With his newly boosted strength, Yoshito pushed the demon back, but he knew it still wasn't enough to finish it off completely. And so, he sacrificed himself one more time as a penalty. Agility was permanently reduced by 60. Reversal flipped that to a plus 60 boost. This time, Yoshito's speed shot up. With this, he was feeling way more confident. The demon looked exhausted from fighting an opponent that just kept reviving. Yoshito suddenly dashed forward, as if teleporting, making its face twist in shock. Even a demon could get startled. Yoshito slashed right through its body before it could react. This ends now. From the very beginning, the demon never stood a chance. Its life was finite. If they both went to hell, or if the demon somehow got a resurrection skill, Yoshito hoped they could have a fair fight then. Asterisk, sigh, asterisk. Yoshito let out a breath of relief. He was lucky to have beaten that demon, even if it took dying twice to win. Even though he was stronger, his crappy sword couldn't take it anymore. He figured he should make some cash from these magic stones and buy a new weapon. In the Hermes Magic Tower, there's a safe zone on the 1st floor by the gate, and every floor has a monster-free area called a safe zone, where adventurers can rest while exploring the magic tower. Adventurers can get gear and items, so they can buy or sell them at stalls in the safe zone. After looking around for a bit, Yoshito found a much better sword, a silver one. Quality comes with a price, though. He spent almost all the money he'd just earned from the stones. No, I'm gonna make it big starting now. Yoshito decided to think of it as a startup investment for a brighter future. It had been a while since Yoshito was back in the safe zone, so he once again faced judgmental stares. Hey, that's the guy who got tricked into buying Infinite Resurrection. What a poor sap. Yoshito heard everything but couldn't do anything about it. In their eyes, he was just a pathetic challenger, tricked into buying a trash-tier skill. But the more he thought about it, the more it pissed him off. If they all knew, why didn't anyone warn him? Infinite Resurrection really is a garbage skill in anyone else's hands. But now that Yoshito had the support skill Reversal, it had become a god-tier skill. You could say it was a skill meant only for him. Only he could master it. He thought to himself, I'm pretty damn cool, huh? So what? A piercing scream echoed through the area. Yoshito immediately went to check out the commotion as a crowd gathered in one spot. Didn't I say I'm gonna challenge the mid-boss on the 5th floor? I am Noji the Dominator, Yoshito sighed. This Noji guy was throwing a fit again. The Dominator is a title for challengers who take on the final boss room on a tower's top floor. Magic. After the final boss on the top floor is defeated, the magic tower vanishes, and those who beat it receive a one-of-a-kind power class item. Rulers are usually respected by the regular challengers, but this Noji guy? he's got a serious problem. Yoshito didn't really care what was happening, but the person arguing with Noji caught his eye. You just got lucky beating some low-tier monster from the tower. Anyone could do that. A level 15, blonde-haired girl named Sekiya Mana was arguing fiercely, while the level 13, Sham Chi stood beside her, trying to calm her down. Mana refused to let it go because their party had found the mid-tier monster room first. Who would be okay with letting that fake ruler steal their reward after they cleared the dungeon? Juji knew the reward for beating a mid-tier monster was tempting, but it was also dangerous. Plus, she was lazy, so it was better to leave it to Noji and his crew. Mana was speechless at her timid best friend. Noji stood to the side, looking smug. Looks like you two have finished your little chat, haven't you? He says it's best if the girls just shut up and watch, waiting for a ruler like him to be granted the unique gear. With his Aegis Mimesis, he can block any attack, so they were confident they could conquer the mid-tier monster room. Juji Mana. Yoshito's sudden appearance surprised the two girls. Noji pushed past the girls, looking Yoshito up and down to mock him. Oh, looky here. Isn't it the guy who got tricked by some scummy MLM scammer and bought a fake skill? It's pathetic being the only one who got duped, right? Faced with his attitude, Yoshito just sighed. He turned to Juji and Mana. Let Noji handle the mid-tier monsters. You too, Yoshito? Mana was furious that he was agreeing with the guy. But he wasn't aiming for the mid-tier monsters. Yoshito wanted them to challenge the final boss on the top floor with him. Hearing something so wild that even Noji and the others couldn't fathom, Juji stared at him like he was completely delusional. But Yoshito wasn't joking. He even had the perfect plan to pull it off. Noji couldn't believe someone would challenge him right to his face. Don't say I'm bullying you. He charged at Yoshito with his shield, but our guy dodged him like it was nothing, moving with such agility that Noji couldn't land a single hit. Then, Yoshito tripped him, sending him flying forward and face-planting on the ground. Are you okay, Noji? His lackeys rushed over to him. Noji was just sitting there, completely stunned, with no clue what just happened. Yoshito casually strolled over, hands in his pockets. How long are you going to keep messing around? Since there were so many people here, Yoshito wanted to witness the ruler's amazing skill for himself. To challenge the mid-tier monster, Yoshito decided to join their party on this golden opportunity. Mind if we tag along? The group entered the magic tower, 4th floor. Mana asked Yoshito if he was sure about following Noji's group because the guy wasn't actually that strong. He just got lucky with his gear. Juji was also worried because the monsters they'd faced so far were incredibly tough. If they got caught in a fight, they'd just be throwing their lives away. It'll be fine. Yoshito's chill attitude left the two girls speechless. Mana and Juji were challengers he had met in the magic tower. Mana was level 15, and Juji was level 13. Yoshito, on the other hand, was only level 8, so it was no wonder they were freaking out. But he was on a completely different level now. Forget his character level, Yoshito's stats had increased dramatically. If they got caught in a fight, he could turn them all to dust. Yoshito. Noji confidently announced that he would fight the boss, while Yoshito should worry about handling the trash mobs. Just a moment ago, he was a little scared, but now he's back to his usual arrogant self. Yoshito was at a loss for words. Speak of the devil, and a monster appeared. One of them targeted the loudmouth Noji, who raised his shield. He braced for impact, blocking the attack. It was just a normal lizard man, but a very aggressive one. Suddenly, it let out a massive roar for no apparent reason. Noji smirked. It's just a lizard man. This is going to be a piece of cake. Wait a second. Yoshito felt something was wrong. The lizard man's roar wasn't random. It was a signal, calling its allies from all around. From the ceiling, a swarm of lizard men jumped down, surrounding them. What the hell is going on? Where did so many come from? Only now did Noji realize they were in trouble. A red-skinned lizard man commander slowly stepped forward as the others bowed respectfully. It was a high-tier lizard man that commanded the horde. It pointed its sword at Yoshito's group, shouting in a language no one could understand. It must have given the attack order, because the blue-skinned lizard men started to charge. Yoshito wasn't scared at all. On the contrary, he was trembling with excitement, ready to show off his skills. Juji, protect Yoshito, Mana screamed while fighting. Juji immediately stood guard by Yoshito's side. He was stunned. Hey, I can fight too, you know? Stop trying to act tough. Yoshito was completely baffled by Mana's attitude. These opponents were way out of his league, she thought. Yoshito was getting seriously annoyed. But even Juji worriedly said, please, get behind us and let us protect you. Everyone was fighting except for him. His heart sank. Now he understood. In everyone else's eyes, Yoshito was just What a damn pain. This whole situation was seriously pissing Yoshito off. The Lizardman commander was targeting Noji for his unique gear. Noji got hit by a surprise attack and was sent flying. Even so, he managed to land on his feet. Asterisk, click, asterisk. A familiar sound echoed. Yoshito realized it was a trap. A section of the floor suddenly collapsed beneath them. And just his luck, it opened up right under Yoshito, even though he was just standing still and not even in the fight. Mana and Juji panicked but couldn't pull him back in time. After all that work protecting Yoshito from the lizardmen, he ends up falling into a damn trap. Yoshito was pissed, wondering, why the hell am I the one falling when Noji was the guy who actually triggered the trap? This was the Hemet Tower, after all, infamous for its countless traps designed to challenge players. However, traps like these didn't even faze Yoshito anymore. He kicked off the falling debris around him and stuck a perfect landing. Like a total pro. Perfect. Not a single scratch. Yoshito carefully checked his one and only set of clothes, but his gamer senses told him something was wrong. When he turned around, a whole pack of Lizardman commanders were staring him down. Every single one of them looked like they were out for blood. Yoshito sighed. Looked like they weren't just gonna let him say hi and leave peacefully. But you know what? I've had enough of this. There was no way out, and our guy had no intention of running anyway. He was sick and tired of the traps and the constant running. He drew his brand new sword. Now, they were just a durability test for his new blade. Yoshito shot forward like a flash of lightning, straight through the pack of Lizardman commanders, sending a few of them flying. Time to test out my new toy, you damn lizards. These Lizardman commanders were high-level monsters that, just yesterday, Yoshito couldn't even get near. But today, he was different. The Yoshito of yesterday was long gone. One commander kicked off the slaughter. Yoshito parried its slash and, in an instant, he sliced it clean in half. One wasn't enough, so two more charged at him. Yoshito spun a full 360 degrees, zipping right between them. The two Lizardman commanders were still looking at each other, confused about what just happened, before they couldn't think at all anymore. Because Yoshito had already lopped off their heads. What's the matter? You guys wanted me in this trap, right? Come and see if you can actually take me down. Yoshito's taunt worked. The lizards let out a roar and charged right at him. Yoshito dodged their attacks, while finishing them off in single strikes. With his godlike speed, he could go all out and absolutely demolish them. Yoshito was no longer the guy who had to hide behind a girl's back. After a while, the remaining Lizardman commanders instinctively started to back away from him. Even they were afraid of death. And Yoshito knew that feeling all too well. In fact, he'd experienced it more than anyone else, so he decided he would end them as quickly as possible. He himself had once wished for a peaceful end, but instead, he was forced to resurrect just to die again and again. When he finally wiped them all out, it felt like he'd just gone through a light warm-up. Yoshito spotted a passageway. Figuring it was the exit, he followed the tunnel and came out through a door. Yoshito sighed like a tired old man. All this climbing up just to fall back down. Even with 100 lives, this was never fun. Juji and Mana were startled when Yoshito suddenly popped out of nowhere. Juji rushed over to check him from head to toe, only relaxing after confirming he had no injuries. She breathed a sigh of relief. Seriously, she had been trying to find a way to rescue him, but there was no way to get down there. And the exit door was right there the whole time. Mana couldn't believe Yoshito had been in the same area as them all along. You weren't attacked by any monsters on your way, were you? Nope, no problem at all, Yoshito replied casually. After leaving a mountain of Lizardman commander corpses behind, he noticed Noji's group was no longer with the two girls. Turns out, after Yoshito fell into the trap, Mana was about to wipe out the Lizardmen, but that jerk Noji insisted he was already a goner, so he rushed straight for the final boss. And it was obvious he was the one who triggered the trap in the first place. But the guy showed zero remorse. Yoshito was the victim here, yet he had to be the one to reassure the others. It's fine, Noji's always been like that. Besides, there was something Yoshito wanted to say to them. Thanks for worrying about me. The two girls looked at each other in surprise, then burst out laughing. It felt like the usually gloomy Yoshito had finally opened up a little. Embarrassed, Yoshito gestured for them to get a move on and catch up with Noji. But suddenly, his expression changed. Behind them, a Lizardman commander they thought was defeated was slowly getting back up. It suddenly picked up speed, leaping to attack Juji. Juji was confused why Yoshito suddenly shouted her name, then her eyes locked onto the commander's blade, coming right for her. In the split second, Mana turned around in a panic. Yoshito had already sprung into action. He used his sword to block the commander's attack. Juji was stunned by Yoshito's sudden appearance. She really thought she was dead. I'll handle this. Mana charged in to deliver the final blow. After it was all over, her heart was still pounding in her chest. That whole situation was a little too close for comfort. That was way too dangerous. Yoshito sighed, storing his sword in his inventory. He absolutely hated heart-stopping moments like that. Thank you for saving me, Juji said to him shyly. It was the first time Yoshito had ever been thanked, especially by a girl, which made him a little awkward. Yeah, glad I made it in time. Mana laughed, watching the two of them, curious how he managed to react so quickly to the lizard commander's attack. No, Yoshito couldn't explain it, but it seemed like they finally saw that he was useful and no longer a burden. The three of them headed up to the 5th floor of IMMORTAL Tower. While the two girls were chatting, Yoshito checked his status. After slaughtering a whole swarm of lizard commanders, Yoshito had jumped 2 levels at once, from level 8 to level 10, plus a few other stat boosts. The stats were gained from leveling up, not from buffs or penalties, so the reversal skill had no effect on them. Yoshito was actually worried it would reverse his positive stats into negative ones. On top of that, Yoshito couldn't believe how ridiculously stingy the stat gains were from leveling up. The attack power he got from his death penalty reversal skill was 65, while after gaining 2 levels, that same stat only went up by 2 points. Weighing the two methods, the combo of infinite resurrection and reversal was just insanely broken. Bypassing the system like this was basically the same as hacking the game. Yoshito, look, Juji suddenly called out, startling him. Because he was so focused on his status, he didn't notice the three of them had arrived at the mid-boss room of IMMORTAL Tower. It was known to have 10 floors, so the 5th floor was the exact midpoint. Since the conquest of this tower had just begun, Juji and Mana were the first two to discover this room. But when they returned to the safe lobby on the 1st floor to prepare for the fight, that jerk Noji spotted them. Damn it, just thinking about it makes my blood boil. Juji had to quickly calm Mana down. The scene reminded Yoshito of an owner trying to soothe their vicious dog. I guess Noji and the others are already inside, huh? Yoshito pushed the door. Even with careful preparation and strategy, a mid-tier boss was still something to be wary of. Yoshito took the lead and stepped inside. He had barely taken 2 steps when someone flew out from inside and slammed against the wall, creating a nasty impact. The man slid to the ground, unable to move his body anymore. Ahead was Noji, who was shocked that our guy was still alive. Since you're still alive, take a good look. This is the mid-boss guarding this room, a massive, ferocious orc lord armed with an equally massive axe. It leaped up and brought its axe down toward Noji. Even though they weren't friends, Yoshito couldn't help but worry for the guy's slow, chubby body. I don't need any concern from scum like you. Noji stood his ground and just used his unique piece of equipment. Attacks like this are nothing to my Aegis mimesis. Noji knocked the orc back. In the fight against the lizardmen earlier, he was caught by a surprise attack, which is why he got his ass handed to him. But in a one-on-one fight, Noji would never let his guard down. Don't you dare look away, Yoshito. I'll show you the difference between a ruler and a weak little fly like you. Are you alive? Juji ran towards the person who had been knocked away. He didn't look okay at all, but his eyes were still glued to the battle. Noji is incredible. Even though I was sent flying with just 1 hit, he hasn't budged an inch. Noji confidently took the orc lord's hit, his feet planted firmly on the ground like 2 stone pillars. His taunting face peeked out from behind the shield, making the orc lord roar in fury. It reared back, raising its arm higher, and began chopping down repeatedly with terrifying speed. After the dust settled, Noji's voice rang out again. Is that all a mid-boss has got? If so, this victory is going to be way too easy for a ruler like me. Yoshito's eyes were fixed on Noji's shield. It was an item obtained from a tower boss, and it held the power of a unique grade item. Noji's personal stats weren't impressive, but with that shield, he could easily block any attack from the mid-boss. The orc lord's arms were getting tired, but its anger wouldn't let it stop. Noji proudly held up his shield. Is that really all you've got? After letting the boss burn through a certain amount of energy, Noji signaled his 2 party members. They rushed in and slashed at the orc's legs, forcing it to its knees. Noji dropped the shield to leap in for an attack. Lowering your head was your biggest mistake. Noji brought a fist crashing down on the orc's head, smashing it into the ground. How about that, Yoshito? This is the true power of a challenger. Noji looked at him arrogantly. Yoshito just gave a slight smile. Now he truly understood what it meant to be carried by your gear. Of course. How could little flies like you ever hope to take down a mid-boss? Noji's attitude made Mana want to punch him right in his mouth. The guy who'd been sent flying was healed and stood up, pointing shakily behind Noji. Look, there's something behind you. A treasure chest was emitting an inviting glow behind them. He bolts towards it, shouting, "Move it." I bet there's some super rare gear inside. The chest looked even more epic than the one that held Noji's shield, getting him totally hyped. But suddenly, Yoshito felt like something was wrong. A chest that looks even better than the one with a unique item, which you can only get by beating the tower's final boss, is showing up on the 5th floor? Wait a second. Noji put down his invincible shield for just a moment. But they couldn't forget that this tower was filled with traps, just waiting for challengers to spring them. It was too late. Noji opened the chest, but it was empty. A golden light flashed, and a magic circle surrounded them. When Yoshito opened his eyes, the whole party had been teleported to another room. He wondered where they were, but one thing was certain. This was no longer a mid-boss room. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Noji's voice trembled. The pressure in this room reminded him of a place he'd been before. It was the kind of pressure you only feel in the highest room of a tower. Suddenly, a series of magic circles appeared again, summoning a monster on the throne in the center of the room. It was the tower's final boss. An invisible pressure radiated from it the moment it appeared, proving its dominance. A red notification popped up. They had been forcibly teleported to the final boss room on the top floor. Yoshito couldn't believe it. Proving it was the ruler of this tower, the Orc Emperor, Oxer, who was built like a literal demon king, charged at them with terrifying speed. Here it comes. A single, simple attack. From it destroyed a huge chunk of the ground. Yoshito could feel it. This boss was on a completely different level from any monster he'd fought before. Except for me, none of your stats are high enough to fight it head on. Get back, I'll take it on. But Noji wouldn't let Yoshito fight. Stay put, or you'll die. Even if Yoshito died, he could still revive. Still, they kept him in the back. Noji led his team forward, but their slashes barely even tickled the orc. Before the boss could finish them, Noji rushed in with his shield. Don't you dare challenge the ruler. I am Noji. The boss unleashed an attack. Unlike every other time, Noji's shield shattered into pieces, and he took the full force of the blow. Yoshito was in disbelief. That shield was supposed to block any attack. Just then, the system announced that due to the difference in stats, the Aegis Mimesis ability had failed to activate. The guy who idolized Noji rushed toward him. Yoshito frantically screamed, "Get out of there!" Huh? Before he could even understand, he was split in half. Yoshito's hands trembled as he clenched his fists. Damn it! He couldn't believe everything was ending this quickly. Mana tried to find an escape route, but the door was magically sealed, meaning they were trapped. So, are we going to die too? Juji was so scared she couldn't move. This time, the boss targeted her. A flash of light, and Yoshito appeared just in time, saving Juji's life once again. From this moment on, I won't let anyone else die. Yoshito was determined to destroy this boss, no matter how many times he had to die. So far, Yoshito was the only one who had managed to dodge its attacks. He slashed at the orc and saw blood spurt out, but it was just a tiny scratch on its thick hide. The boss leaped up for another attack. Yoshito rolled out of the way just in time, then counterattacked with lightning speed. The two girls were stunned as they watched Yoshito take on the beast alone with a whole new level of power. Even though his stats were boosted by the death penalty, it still wasn't enough. The boss easily blocked Yoshito's attack. This really is the final boss of a tower, huh? Yoshito figured his stats weren't high enough to beat it yet, but his strategy was to wear down its stamina first. Then, he'd finish it after reviving a few times. Yoshito charged in, clashing with it head-on. His attacks were like mosquito bites, which only pissed the boss off even more. With a light flick of its arm, Yoshito was sent flying into the air. He couldn't believe this was his limit. Slice. Yoshito's head flew from his body, zipping past Juji's face and making her go pale. Our guy died, and then he revived again. After losing 65 points, as quick as ever, his reversal skill flipped it, turning the penalty into power for him. Yoshito would keep rising until he defeated it. Mana realized his infinite resurrection skill was what brought Yoshito back to life. But every time he uses that skill, it's supposed to have a negative effect. How can he keep fighting like this? On his second revival, Yoshito got 20 points in stamina, but that wasn't what he needed. He didn't need HP right now either. He needed a stat that could actually deal damage to the boss. Then, Yoshito snapped back to consciousness, as if waking from a nightmare. He didn't know how many times he'd died, but the horrific feeling of death was still just as real every single time. Yoshito felt like he was going to lose his mind, but finally, the stat he desperately needed appeared: attack power. Not only that, Yoshito got an insane 140 extra points he never expected. Then, another window popped up because he had unlocked an achievement. By mastering the infinite resurrection skill, the designated respawn point function has been unlocked. After reading the details, Yoshito smiled with satisfaction. Got it. This is going to be incredibly useful. He pushed himself up, preparing for his next revival. This time, it was his turn to flip the script. Designated respawn is a function that lets Yoshito choose a revival spot within 3 meters of his corpse. With this skill, he won't get spawn camped while using infinite resurrection. If Yoshito only revived in the exact spot he just died, his enemies would just wait there to kill him over and over again. But if Yoshito can choose any position, he can break the cycle of being slaughtered. During Yoshito's revival process, time in the real world is frozen. He walked around the battlefield and stopped in the boss's blind spot. Now, it's my turn. Yoshito appeared suddenly from behind, attacking so fast the orc couldn't react. Did he just move there in an instant? So this is what it looks like from a third-person perspective when Yoshito chooses his respawn point. The orc, pissed off from the sneak attack, spun around to strike back. Yoshito ducked to protect his head. Even though Noji and his crew were total scumbags, he never thought they'd end up in the grave so soon. By defeating a tower boss, Yoshito could get his hands on a unique piece of gear, but right now, what he wanted more than anything was its head. The orc slammed its right fist down where Yoshito was, shattering the floor tiles. But Yoshito wasn't there. He had already jumped onto its massive arm. Sword in hand, Yoshito sprinted down its arm straight towards the orc. With one vertical slash down its massive body, the orc fell to the ground and died without even a gasp. Yoshito let out a sigh of relief and sheathed his weapon. The system announced that he had defeated the boss of Tower H. The reward was a unique item and a magic stone. It was transferred directly into his inventory. He couldn't lie. Getting the reward felt incredibly good. But right now, Yoshito's mind was a chaotic mess. After a real battle to the death, he was just thankful to be alive and well. Juji suddenly ran up and hugged him from behind, then realized she'd gone too far and quickly pulled away. Sorry, she's so into him but is trying to play it cool. It's fine, Yoshito replied coldly. Girls were the last thing on his mind right now. Thank you, Yoshito. If it weren't for him, both Mana and Juji would have been pushing up daisies here, but Mana still had to speak her mind. The way you fight, it's too brutal. Watching Yoshito sacrifice his life over and over again was painful even for her as a bystander. I'm sorry, even though you saved us, but you don't have to worry about it. Yoshito gently patted Mana's head to comfort her. He felt bad for making them witness him getting annihilated so many times, but no matter how many times he was defeated, he would always come back. Still, to be honest, it hurt like absolute hell. Yoshito couldn't hold it in anymore. He had to endure the pain while maintaining an iron will to keep from going insane after dying so many times. So from now on, Yoshito was determined to never let himself rely on infinite resurrection again. He was scared of the pain, too. Suddenly, the room began to shake violently. Because the tower boss had been defeated, the tower would disappear in 10 seconds. All survivors would be teleported outside. A bright light enveloped them, preparing to transport the group out. Yoshito waved goodbye. See you on the outside. Before leaving, he looked back at the bodies of Noji's crew one last time. I'll never forget you guys. Rest in peace. Exactly 10 seconds later, Tower H vanished without a trace. As if it had never existed. The tower had only just appeared and wasn't even halfway completed. But the boss on the highest floor had already been defeated. What strange news, just as the director said. However, the disappearance of Magic Tower H was confirmed as fact. A subordinate handed a tablet with the images to his director. A detailed report will be here shortly. The director pondered for a moment, then placed the iPad on the table. Things are starting to get interesting, aren't they? Yoshito felt like he had blacked out for a few seconds. When he opened his eyes, he was on the ground with the other challengers. They had just been teleported outside and were in a panic as Tower H vanished before their eyes. So it was real, not a dream. Yoshito clenched his fist. I actually conquered it. But his arm slowly lowered and his excitement faded. The people around him were wondering how the boss was defeated since none of them had even conquered past the 5th floor. Meanwhile, the boss was on the 10th floor. Could it be that some super OP player took down the boss? The question reached Yoshito's ears. Maybe he should stand up and declare that he was the one who defeated it. But that was just a fleeting thought. As an introvert, Yoshito would never do something like that. Conquering his first magic tower had definitely boosted his confidence, but he told himself not to get carried away and become arrogant. The fact that he defeated the boss all by himself would be a secret that only he knew. Yoshito didn't want to stand out, so he decided to keep quiet and slip away. But he forgot that 2 other people also knew his secret. There's Yoshito. Hey, tell us, what unique item did you get for beating the tower's bug? And just like that, the challengers fell silent. No way. Isn't that the guy who got scammed into buying that trash-tier infinite resurrection skill? Who would have believed Yoshito is the ruler now? After a few minutes, Yoshito finally managed to escape the chaos. What a mess. The world was split in two. One half glaring at him from a distance with jealousy, the other half swarming him with questions. During the battle, Mana felt super guilty, but it wasn't a huge deal. Yoshito also had no idea what to do with her. Yoshito beat the tower's bug and became the ruler, so it was inevitable he'd be the center of attention. The ruler, too, Yoshito. It was a strange, indescribable feeling. Just yesterday, he was one of the weakest challengers in the tower. Now, he felt that his decision to sell his house to buy the infinite resurrection skill wasn't such a bad move after all. Speaking of the infinite resurrection skill, Juji was curious. Every time Yoshito revived, he was supposed to get a penalty, but he could still fight, and he even got stronger. Well, Yoshito didn't know how to explain the reversal skill. More like, he had no idea where to even begin. Too many crazy events were all tangled together. Seeing Yoshito hesitate, Juji backed off. She was just curious, so if it was hard for him to talk about, he didn't have to answer. That works. It's not that he couldn't explain it to them. He's just a terrible storyteller. Let's put the explanation aside for now. So, what unique reward did you actually get for beating the bug? Yoshito didn't get why Mana was so obsessed with unique gear, when he, the guy who actually got it, hadn't even bothered to look at it yet. Hold on a sec. Yoshito tried to open his window, but nothing showed up. That's because they were outside the tower. The status window and inventory can only be opened while you're inside. Using special skills or stat boosts also doesn't work out here. Basically, when challengers leave the tower, they're just normal people. This system prevents players with bad intentions from totally wrecking the social order. However, there is one exception, an area called the tower's domain, where challengers can use their power. Yoshito stepped into the tower's domain, and the feeling was weird, almost as if they were standing right inside the tower itself. Now for the moment Mana's been waiting for. Yoshito opened the window. The name of the unique gear I was rewarded is Force Amenos. Yoshito tapped on the item, and a bright light erupted with a gust of wind. A sword materialized in Yoshito's right hand. Damn, for a unique item, even the way it appears is on a whole different level. Yoshito held the Force Amenos. This is awesome. So this was a unique weapon. Juji and Mana were just as hyped. The sword was black and red with a golden hilt. It looked incredibly cool and high-spec. Yoshito gave it a light swing, with dizzying speed. To him, the sword felt pretty light and easy to handle. He already wanted to grind in the tower just to use his new sword. Suddenly, Juji lowered her head. Mana noticed something was up, and the gears in her head started turning fast. Hey Yoshito, how about we form a party? Me too. Juji bravely raised her hand like she was volunteering in class. Yoshito had no clue how to react, but they'd all grown closer after everything, so he agreed to join up with them. Mana suddenly shot a look at Yoshito and leaned in super close to his face. So, which tower should we go to next? One like Hermes? Or maybe a bigger one? Mana was totally pumped to challenge another tower, but Juji wasn't feeling it. Yoshito hadn't thought about it either, but there was one place he'd always wanted to go after clearing the tower. Where's that? Juji felt a little nervous after seeing Yoshito's smile. Tokyo. The Challenger Management Bureau. His answer made the atmosphere freeze. The Management Bureau? Not. Another tower? The two girls were completely lost. Yoshito sighed and covered his face. At the Bureau, they buy magic stones and all sorts of other loot for way better prices than the tower markets. I want to go trade some items for cash, because I went completely broke buying that infinite resurrection skill. Yoshito clutched his head in agony. Mana and Juji just stared at him with judging eyes. They couldn't believe it. Yoshito was even dumber than they thought. The Player Management Bureau in Tokyo is a government organization set up to support tower expeditions. All information on every tower is updated there in real time. The buying and selling of magic stones and weapons is also organized systematically, and the prices are always fair. You'll find tons of scams at the stalls near the towers, but the Bureau is all about fairness and is trusted by the challengers. Plus, the building is on a tower's domain, so there are no restrictions on players' abilities. This is another major plus that makes the Bureau the second biggest hub for challengers after the towers themselves. Among the countless rewards he got from conquering the Hermes Tower, there weren't just unique weapons, but also magic stones. Our boy Yoshito was hoping to make just enough cash to pay off his debt for the month. Welcome. Are you looking to exchange magic stones for cash? Yoshito fumbled around in his inventory. Heading over to exchange the stones, he suddenly realized he had no idea how many he'd collected since getting stronger. He'd been so focused on fighting that he never paid attention to the count. The moment he tapped on the magic stones, a massive pile dumped out onto the receptionist's desk. It left her completely frozen. Even Yoshito himself couldn't believe he'd gathered this many magic stones. It was a bit more than he expected from clearing the tower, but the receptionist quickly snapped out of it. Well then, shall we begin the exchange process? Yoshito walked out holding a fat stack of cash. What debt? At this point, he was ridiculously loaded. Now, Yoshito didn't need to think about dodging debt collectors, but how to spend all this money. The two girls waiting in the lobby were also stunned. Their friend had gotten rich overnight. But Mana had to warn Yoshito to be careful with his spending. If he didn't want to end up in debt again, that is, he was prime bait for scammers. Yeah, I get it, Yoshito sighed. Guess I'll see you girls another time. Oh, there it is. An invisible pressure weighed down on him, putting Yoshito on high alert. I heard you visited the management bureau, so I was waiting to meet you. Yoshito was shocked that the source of that pressure was a girl with an ice-cold expression. I'm the director of the Tokyo Player Management Bureau, Rito Fuyun. May I have a moment of your time, ruler of Tower H? Fuyun leaned in close to Yoshito's ear. Her blue eyes sent a chill down his spine. The reason Yoshito felt so weird was because her face looked a bit similar to his. The Management Bureau brings together tower challengers, and she was known as its strongest monster. Apparently, she inherited the director's seat after conquering 3 towers, back when she was still a challenger. Fuyun even appeared in the Bureau's commercials all over the city. You couldn't walk 5 steps without seeing a poster of her. But seeing her this close, Yoshito felt like he was talking to a female version of himself. Yoshito was curious why someone so high up would take an interest in a tower climber like him. Fuyun didn't beat around the bush and answered directly. First, to hear how Yoshito suddenly conquered Tower H, and second, to verify his true power. On the way, following Fuyun, Yoshito explained how they got caught in a trap and were forcibly teleported to the boss room. Fuyun needed to relay this info to other challengers so they knew no one was hacking the game. Fuyun also thanked Yoshito for telling her about Noji and his team. The Bureau would contact their surviving family members. Seeing the sad looks on the trio's faces, Fuyun sympathized. It's common for people to lose loved ones while clearing the towers, but that doesn't make it any less painful, does it? Fuyun's words made Yoshito realize something. Until now, he'd told himself there was nothing he could have done for Noji and the others, but feeling sad about their deaths was something he could do for them. A short while later, they arrived at the Bureau's training room. The massive space left all 3 of them in awe. A sword suddenly flew towards him. Yoshito looked at it. It was so generic it was almost boring. This is a standard sword used for the Bureau's training evaluations. From this moment on, you are permitted to use that sword. To fight me. Fuyun was holding the exact same kind of sword. This is to verify the true power of a ruler. And it's also part of my responsibility as the head of the Bureau. I guess this is something I can't refuse, huh? Yoshito took a deep breath to brace himself. Well, if he had no other choice, he was going to take this seriously. Ready? Fuyun signaled. Yoshito's opponent was the leader and the strongest person in the entire Management Bureau. But times was the one who defeated a tower boss. Yoshito was confident he'd be a tougher opponent than Fuyun expected. Alright, let's go. The moment Yoshito finished speaking, Fuyun vanished, then instantly reappeared right in front of him. Sword swinging. Yoshito leaned back as far as he could to avoid getting his face sliced. Fuyun was dead serious. She didn't waste time with words, maybe not even with thoughts. She just swung her sword. Pure instinct. Yoshito struggled to defend himself. Fuyun's sword strikes were overwhelmingly fast. He had to jump back to get some distance from her and escape the pressure. The closer he was, the harder it was to breathe. Suddenly, Fuyun appeared behind him. Nowhere to run. Yoshito was hit and sent flying. His body was exhausted. This was the massive level gap between him and a true top ranker. He might have beaten the boss, but that was only by dying and respawning over and over. Compared to someone who could clear towers without dying once, he was a nobody. No, that's not right. Yoshito remembered all the pain he went through. He had persevered, even after dying dozens of times. Why should he feel disappointed comparing himself to someone with completely different abilities and experience? Right. If you can't win just by defending, you gotta use your special ability. The truth is, anyone would be scared and keep their distance when facing death. But Yoshito is different. He's got hundreds of thousands of lives to spare. So why should he be afraid of dying? Yoshito's sudden change of pace catches Fuyun a little off guard. He can see her movements are slower now. It would be a total waste not to strike. Yoshito swings his sword decisively, but Fun flips backward in midair to dodge the attack. Yoshito can't believe his eyes after seeing that move. Fun immediately counters, sending him flying. That was completely unpredictable. Fun has to admit she was surprised. If it were just a normal monster or person, she could have dodged the attack easily. If Fun hadn't hesitated back there, this whole fight would have just been a one-sided beatdown with him on the receiving end. Fun remains cold and decisive with her attacks, but Yoshito is different now, because she sees him charging forward without defending like before, which made her hesitate for a few seconds when attacking him with her sword. Yoshito doesn't think it's because Fun is kind and afraid of hurting him, but because he acted in a way she just couldn't comprehend. Simply put, Fun's arm didn't know how to react. At the same time, Yoshito sees the opportunity because, with his infinite resurrection, he has no fear of death. Yoshito rushes in to attack, just as he planned. Sorry for playing dirty, but if I don't do this, there's no way a normal person could ever win. Fun had received reports about Yoshito's infinite resurrection skill. He can revive countless times and has the ability to charge headfirst into danger without fearing death. To Fun, this is truly an amazing ability. Even though Yoshito might seem different now, Fun won't let herself make the same mistake again. Yoshito takes a hit right on the jaw, sending pain through him. You'd think he'd collapse, but unexpectedly, he gets back up and points his sword at Fun. Compared to dying, this is nothing. The fight seems to be over. Fun smiles and sheathes her weapon. She has acknowledged Yoshito's true strength, as well as her own defeat. Yoshito suddenly collapses on the ground, much to Fun's confusion. He couldn't care less who won or lost anymore. Right now, what he needs most is physical therapy, or his soul might just leave his body. A few minutes later, I almost died, for real. But you didn't die. Fun can't understand Yoshito's point. He sighs. They've fought. His talent has been recognized, and now he just wants to go home. No. We still have an important conversation to have. As the director of the management bureau, Fun has verified that he is stronger than other tower climbers, so she wants to make him a special offer. Juji and Mana are completely stunned. An offer from the director of the management bureau is known to come with a massive reward. Fun will transfer the reward to Yoshito's bank card. She promises it's enough money to support his family for 3 generations. Yoshito is no longer obsessed with his debt. He's curious what Fun's challenge is. A few hours ago, the management bureau confirmed that a new tower has appeared. The entrance is currently sealed. Fun wants him to be the first one to enter the tower and gather information about it. All he needs to do is a preliminary investigation of the Perfo Tower. This is a request that Fun can only entrust to Yoshito, the man with an immortal body. Whenever a new tower appears, it's the management bureau's job to investigate it. But why would Fun entrust this to a newbie like him? Actually, I've already sent players from the management bureau. 2 teams of 5 went in, but not a single one came back. Not a single one returned? That can't be true. Fun thought so too at first, but when the search party found them, all 10 adventurers who were sent in were already dead, right at the entrance. They were trying to escape, as if fleeing from something horrible as fast as they could. Wait, isn't there a safe zone near the entrance? That's a place where no monsters are supposed to spawn, so why did they die there? More importantly, the autopsy showed no wounds on their bodies caused by monsters. In other words, the cause of death for the 10-person team is still unknown. Upon receiving the report, Fun ordered the recovery of the 10 bodies and commanded the search team to return immediately, as it seemed something very dangerous was inside. The time, place, and cause of death are all unclear. That's the problem the management bureau is facing with the appearance of the Perfo Tower. But Yoshito has the infinite resurrection skill, which is why Fun is making this special request to him. Don't get me wrong. I don't intend to take advantage of your life. However, I can't accept any more sacrifices from the management bureau. So, this is a personal request from me, Yoshito sighs. He'll accept, as long as she transfers the full amount to his bank card. Yoshito enters the first floor of the tower. Of course, he goes in alone, without those 2 girls tailing him. Inside the gloomy, silent space, Yoshito slaps his face to steel himself. He doesn't need to conquer this tower. All you have to do is figure out what killed the previous adventurers. Easy, right? Without wasting a second, Yoshito opens his inventory and grabs his new toy, Forzamelos. Time to get moving. Everyone's counting on him. Down a dark hallway, a squad of walking skeletons is on patrol. Asterisk swoosh times a flash of red light slices through, and the skeletons go flying. Even though this isn't a conquest mission, Yoshito can't resist trying out his new sword. It's incredibly light and super easy to swing, just what he'd expect from a unique grade weapon. Suddenly, a purple mist starts swirling around Yoshito. It gets thicker and thicker, completely blocking his vision. Yoshito slashes at it, but it does nothing. A red notification window pops up. And now he knows exactly why all those previous adventurers died. Abnormal status warning. Under the effect of Poena's curse, Yoshito will die in 120 seconds. This mist affects anyone who sees it. Fuin definitely made the right call, sending Yoshito to scout this place. A curse like this would make any normal player panic and completely lose control. But Yoshito is no ordinary adventurer. If a player manages to leave the tower, the curse wears off. When the Management Bureau's adventurers were sent in, they tried to escape within that 120-second window to save themselves. But even when they reached the safe zone, the curse was still active, even if they were just one step from the exit. That's why their bodies had no visible injuries. The cause of death was this ghostly, hazy mist. The smoke suddenly gathers in one spot, then shoots off. After dropping the curse on Yoshito, it just vanishes. What? Did it just hit its daily quota? Go ahead and underestimate me. Yoshito's blood is boiling. For his reversal skill, the effects of this curse are about to flip from negative to positive. He doesn't even need to go through the resurrection step. Thanks to the curse, Yoshito's body is now in absolutely perfect condition. He immediately chases after that deep purple mist. Along the way, Yoshito runs into a few more cursed clouds. At this rate, no wonder regular adventurers can't get very far in here. He's not sure if he's hallucinating, but the mist seems to be getting thicker. Yoshito pushes through it and enters a gloomy chamber. The cursed smoke is rising from a large pool of water. Looks like this is the source of it all. As Yoshito is circling the area, a purple orb flies straight at him. He dodges to the side, and the orb slams into the wall, causing an explosion. A dark figure is hovering above Yoshito. It's the guardian of the cursed stream. It summons more dark orbs and launches them at our guy. But none of them hit him, which makes the guardian scream in rage. This time, it creates a tornado of cursed smoke and sends it hurtling toward Yoshito. It claps for itself, thinking it's finally defeated him. Now I get it. So you're the one controlling all this. Stacks of curse buffs are appearing right before Yoshito's eyes. It's clear this thing is itching for a massacre. Suddenly, a skeleton attacks Yoshito, and he instantly reacts, slicing it in half. Looks like this smoke can also summon other monsters. Skeletons begin pouring out of the mist like ants from a broken nest. Even as strong as Yoshito is, he can't control everything. While he's busy fighting, a skeleton seizes the chance to attack him from behind. It hurts, but he has to go through this damn feeling every single time. Seeing Yoshito lying in a pool of blood, the Guardian is overjoyed. But as it laughs, all the negative effects on Yoshito are converting into positive buffs. Enough laughing, Yoshito swings his sword with even more power, leaping up to strike the Guardian. Its cursed smoke does nothing but act as a top-tier healing potion for him. The Guardian is sliced into 100 pieces. Once it's defeated, the cursed stream vanishes, replaced by a crystal-clear blue spring. After completing the mission, Yoshito returns to the Management Bureau HQ to report back to Fun about the curse that killed her team of adventurers. 10 people were sent in. The thought that just seeing the cursed mist was a one-way ticket to hell gives Fun a massive headache. So, is there any way to counter this curse? Of course. This is the best countermeasure. Yoshito tosses her a vial of blue liquid. After he defeated the Guardian, the stream was purified, and when Yoshito touched the water, the system displayed a notification window. This is the holy water of Poena, which cures Poena's curse. After use, it also grants immunity to new curses for 600 seconds. This holy water not only dispels the curse, but also provides a protective buff. If adventurers bring this into the tower, no one will die from the curse again. Yoshito only went up to the 3rd floor of the tower, but it seems like every floor has its own cursed stream. That's when he realized something. Poena is a tower where you have to climb floor by floor, purifying the cursed streams to secure the holy water source. Fun is extremely pleased with the results. Thank you for the detailed report, the warning signs, and the countermeasures. Now that they know these two things, the Poena Tower, Pone will be announced to all adventurers. Fun stood up, opened a drawer, and pulled out 6 thick stacks of cash. Since you've completed the request, this is your reward. Is this enough? It's more than enough. Yoshito quickly waved his hands before she could pull out. Another 6 stacks of cash. She had clearly said she'd do a bank transfer, but ended up giving him cash, forcing Yoshito to clutch it all. With the stacks in his arms, he looked like he'd just robbed a bank. Mommy, that man looks so strange. Yoshito's face was pale, as he tried to figure out how to spend the money, which made him look incredibly suspicious. A few days later, Yoshito had to immediately go pay off his debt. from buying infinite resurrection before it could rack up any more interest. Even so, he still had a ton of reward money left, so he went to some high-end stores and bought a bunch of expensive stuff. Yoshito looked up at the sky, his new gear in hand. Man, these brand-name sunglasses are something else. It feels like I can see right through the sun. Juji, I heard that everyone's allowed to challenge the Pone Tower. From now on, let's hurry up and find Yoshito to form a party. Mana's familiar voice rang out, and Yoshito panicked. Why did they have to show up right now? He tried to act calm, praying they wouldn't notice him as the two girls walked past him. Yoshito let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Mana turned her head back. Yoshito quickly spun around, making him look even more suspicious. Mana came closer for a better look, and suddenly her face twisted. What? Is that you, Yoshito? Don't act like that. It's just that I suddenly have a lot of money, and I don't know what to do with it. Yoshito twitched as if his sore spot had just been poked. I think you look pretty sharp, you know? Juji tried to comfort him, but Mana's face was full of disgust. She decided to try and ignore the flashy, colorful outfit Yoshito was wearing. It was perfect timing, since they were looking for him to form a party to conquer the Pone Tower. Yoshito didn't get why she looked so excited, especially when that tower had a high-level danger warning. The magic stones have been replaced by a cursed fog, and it's being sold by the ton. So, any adventurer confident in their skills is going to be heading in first. According to a report from the Adventurer Management Bureau, players have already pushed to the 10th floor in just a few days. That's an insane pace. Besides, we want to make some money, too. Mana felt it was unfair that only Yoshito got rich while they were still broke. As for Juji, she didn't care about the money. As long as she was with Yoshito, she'd go anywhere. So, it's because you're rich now? Yoshito thought it over. As long as they brought holy water, there shouldn't be any risks, so he decided to conquer the Pone Tower with them. But first, Yoshito wanted to change his clothes. This outfit was super uncomfortable, even though it cost a fortune. At that same moment, inside the tower, challengers were dying even with holy water. A phantom, holding a scythe like a grim Reaper, was waiting for the next adventurers. Pone Tower, 10th floor. Yoshito was busy grinding and leveling up. He was now level 16. Wow! Mana clapped enthusiastically at Yoshito's strength. You've gotten stronger so fast. After wiping out all these monsters, leveling up is a given, but in reality, leveling up doesn't really affect Yoshito's stats much. But if his level was too different from theirs, people would start talking. So Yoshito decided to grind his level to match his stats. Suddenly, a notification window popped up. The holy water of Pone is only effective for 60 seconds. Every time the timer was about to run out, the system would notify them to reapply the holy water. The river on this floor has been purified, so they probably won't run into the cursed fog anymore. But Mana was still on guard. She suggested Yoshito use the holy water again, just in case. Yoshito was curious if his reversal skill would turn the holy water into a curse if he used it. He hadn't found the right time to tell to them about his skill, so he was about to explain it right now. Suddenly, a skeleton in a cloak appeared from above the two girls. It grabbed Juji's head and pulled her up. Juji didn't even have time to use the holy water as the cursed fog crept out from the skeleton's arm. Juji opened her eyes and read the red notification. Because she was cursed, she would die in 120 seconds. It was a monster that could inflict curses. It jumped out the exact moment the holy water's effect wore off. In this situation, Juji couldn't use the holy water herself because she was being held by the monster. Juji, I'll save you. Mana immediately charged in to attack. Since they only had 2 minutes, the monster spun its scythe, blocking all of Mana's slashes before knocking her aside. It was Yoshito's turn. He leaped up and attacked from above, but it used its scythe to block his sword. Yoshito frowned, unleashing countless high-speed sword strikes, but the creature was able to block every single one. Now he realized, this monster in front of him was no joke. Yoshito backed away, thinking, why is it so strong? But it's only defending instead of attacking us? What is this thing thinking? We have to hurry. There are only 90 seconds left until Juji's curse activates. Mana was sweating, completely panicked. Juji screamed and cried, begging it to let her go. Suddenly, the monster looked at her and grinned as if it had just won a prize. The system then provided information on this monster. It was a soul eater. Now Yoshito understood the monster, waited for the holy water's effect to wear off, then attacked adventurers to feast on the fear it caused them. Don't look down on me, you cheap-shotting bastard. Yoshito charged forward, but his attack couldn't get past the Soul Eater's scythe. It gave him a mocking grin, pissing Yoshito off. Playtime was over. It dragged the hostage and ran in another direction. Both Mana and Yoshito immediately gave chase. When they rounded a corner, their faces darkened. An army of skeletons was waiting for them. The Soul Eater ordered them to attack. It looked like they'd been lying in wait to ambush them. Not hearing Mana's voice, Yoshito got curious. What's wrong? You scared? No. Instead, I'm feeling even more fired up. Try to keep up with me, Yoshito signaled, and they both dashed through the skeleton soldiers, wiping out other mobs that were shooting arrows at them from a distance. Mana couldn't react in time. She thought she was toast. Yoshito jumped in and sliced the arrow away, checking on Mana at the same time. Less than 60 seconds remained. Yoshito gritted his teeth and blasted through the skeletons to clear a path. Suddenly, an item dropped. A ring carrying the grudge of the dead. When this item is equipped, the user offs themselves after 5 seconds. Yoshito let out a sarcastic laugh. An item with absolutely no reason to exist. Something that nobody would ever want to wear. Was a perfect fit for him. After equipping it, the effect kicked in. Yoshito would die in 5 seconds. But with reversal, he would be fully restored after 5 seconds instead. Now, he didn't even have to think about defending. He just had to charge forward. Yoshito stomped on some skulls and leaped up to get close to the boss. He'd been waiting for this moment for a long time, an opponent worthy enough for him to show off the special skill of Foramenos. The sword's 7-stack effect meant each slash grew stronger than the last. If you couldn't land the full 7-hit combo, the skill would fail, and you'd have to wait through a long cooldown to use it again. That's why it was so hard to find the right moment to use it. However, right now, with Yoshito dropping his guard and leaving countless openings, the Soul Stealer attacked him. Just 5 seconds later, Yoshito's wounds healed as if nothing had happened, and he continued his assault. Thanks to the Ring of the Dead's grudge, he would be healed every 5 seconds. The Soul Stealer couldn't believe it. It sliced him in half with its scythe. In 1 more second, the ring's effect would activate, and reversal would turn everything positive. An enemy that could fight without ever getting exhausted was terrifying, but it should be blaming the ring, not him. Yoshito had just been cut in 2, but he instantly regenerated and attacked again. Next up was the final slash, the most powerful one. Let's see if you can block this one. Withered Petal. A slash carrying immense power rained down, accompanied by flower petals that bloomed across the entire forest. The Soul Stealer couldn't smile anymore. Its skeleton dissolved into nothingness. Juji fell from the sky in a freefall. Even if she didn't die from the curse, a fall from this height would be enough to send her to the afterlife. Yoshito managed to catch her in time. Juji opened her eyes to find herself in his arms, causing her to blush. Thank goodness, you're okay. Yoshito was relieved to have defeated the Soul Stealer. Mana rushed over with a vial of holy water. This isn't the time to get all lovey-dovey. The curse is going to take effect in just a few seconds. After pouring the holy water on her hand, the curse was lifted. Mana still shuddered, thinking about how that monster knew to target the exact moment the holy water wore off. Suddenly, a storm of red notifications popped up, making Yoshito's head spin. This had to be the effect of the Ring of the Dead's grudge. He wondered how much longer the ring could take this, but as soon as he thought that, it started to crack. A rather nasty-looking smoke began to seep out, making him uncomfortable. Yoshito waved his hand to keep it from getting in his nose. Yoshito was afraid it would explode, so he immediately tried to take the ring off, but he couldn't. It was stuck on him tighter than superglue. The ring began to glow as if it was really about to detonate. Yoshito winced, bracing for the pain, but nothing happened. He slowly opened his eyes. The ring had changed from grudge to a ring of corrosion because the grudge of the dead had reached its curse limit. The two girls looked at Yoshito, confused. He let out a sigh of relief that the ring didn't explode but had simply transformed into a different item. It seemed like it had no effect now, so Yoshito wouldn't be using it. Perhaps the only way to take it off was through the system menu. He was panicking earlier, which is why trying to physically remove it was useless. So, what do we do now? Mana closed her eyes to think. Since Juji had a pretty heart-stopping experience today, maybe they should just collect some magic stones and head back. I'm sorry, everyone. It's because of me that Mana quickly waved her hands, saying it was no big deal. Juji was very sensitive, and she didn't want her to overthink things. Juji took a deep breath, deciding that from now on, she would do her best to collect all the magic stones around here. A few minutes later, Juji was soloing the entire skeleton mob. Mana and Yoshito just had to stand back and cheer her on. Several hours later, Juji was still going strong on her tower conquest, while Yoshito had already passed out. The tower conquest continued smoothly and easily, since many adventurers had already reached the highest floors discovered by humans. kept climbing. A few weeks later, people started talking about the boss room on the 30th floor. But there was a major problem. That room was sealed, and no one could get inside. Today, Yoshito had plans to check it out with Mana and Juji. They were at the P-Phone Tower's boss room, but still had no clue how to break the seal. But apparently, that wasn't a problem. An acquaintance of Mana's had found a hint on an upper floor. Seriously? Yoshito shouted, making Mana signal for him to be quiet. No one else knows about this hint. It's a short phrase. The more sacrifice, the more ruin. What does that even mean? I don't get a single word of it either. Yoshito and Mana just stared at each other blankly. These two were all brawn and no brains. Juji raised her hand. She had some info. Apparently, a lot of people in the P-Phone Tower had received a ring with a death-inducing effect. A ring? Yoshito was surprised. Mana eyed him suspiciously. Don't tell me you have one of those too. One of those. It seems a person can only get one ring. Some people even think it's some kind of unlock item. Yoshito just realized it now, but even after killing tons of other monsters in the tower, he hadn't gotten another one. Where deaths accumulate, ruin follows. That seems to be the meaning behind the clue. But it looks like even after using the ring, the boss room door didn't open, so this information wasn't confirmed. Yoshito immediately stood up. Let's go. To the P-Phone Tower. Somehow, he felt like only times his time's ring could unlock it. He felt like his ring was a magic key for the boss room. The 30th floor of the P-Phone Tower was incredibly cold and gloomy. On the way, Yoshito wondered what he'd do if his guess was wrong. Just a few minutes ago, he'd been so proud, claiming his ring was the key, the magic key, and now he just wanted to crawl into a hole. Of course, this was all just in Yoshito's head. But Yoshito, why do you think your ring can open the door? Juji asked curiously. Yoshito explained that after the ring was destroyed from causing his death so many times, it transformed into a new item. What? You actually triggered the ring's effect? Juji was completely shocked, but she'd have to get used to it, since Yoshito has infinite resurrection. Anyway, this new ring had zero information on it. It was weird that it transformed into a new item, but had no effect. That's when the hint came up, bringing ruin as proof of endless sacrifice. In other words, after activating the Grudge of the Dead effect countless times, this corroded ring appears. That's why Yoshito thought it might be the key to the door. The two girls went, ooh, finally getting it. Looks like infinite resurrection isn't such a great skill after all. Yoshito turned away, embarrassed. He'd talked way too much today. Now, everything depended on this ring. Would he be a total clown or Detective Conan? It all came down to this. The three of them arrived in front of the boss room door. Mana had tried with all her might, but the door wouldn't open. Yoshito, use your magic key. Mana left the rest to him. Yoshito was just as nervous, telling himself to trust his own theory. He put on the ring, raised his hand, and yelled, "Open sesame." The door was dead silent. Not even a fly buzzed past. Yoshito wished he could crawl into a hole and hide. So embarrassing. Just then, the ring on his hand began to glow. At the same time, the door also lit up and slowly creaked open. Yoshito was as happy as if he'd won the lottery. Thank God, his reputation was saved. But it was only now that Yoshito remembered. He was so focused on opening the door that he completely forgot there was a boss inside. The 30th floor boss made him break out in a cold sweat. It was definitely stronger than that slime from the other tower. While the two girls were chatting, Yoshito signaled for them to huddle up and strategize. Suddenly, an arm shot out from inside the door and yanked Yoshito in. It threw him inside. Stay back. Yoshito signaled to Mana and Juji, but it was too late. The door slammed shut again. Looks like they couldn't leave after opening this door. A summoning portal appeared before his eyes. A monster in a shaggy fur cloak stepped out. Underneath its dark hood was a freaky, skeletal face. It slammed its staff down and roared, unleashing a powerful gust of wind that nearly blew them over. Yoshito was the one who opened the door. Looks like he had no choice but to take responsibility for using his magic key. Its fur began to glow. This was an ancient bone priest. Since it's a priest, its main power is summoning. The bone priest launched a volley of blue fireballs that surrounded them. From the flames, an army of skeletons appeared. So this boss can summon other monsters. The longer this fight drags on, the worse it'll be for them. Yoshito dashed towards the ancient bone priest at top speed. The best strategy was to ignore the summons and aim for the caster. The bone priest narrowed its eyes at him. His attack was completely nullified by its defensive barrier. Yoshito was blown back about 25 feet. That defensive barrier was too tough. Yoshito forgot about the skeleton army. Just as he blocked an attack from one, another one stabbed him from behind, and Yoshito was toast. He revived again, this time with another 40 defense points. Yoshito attacked them like usual, but the skeletons didn't even flinch. These skeletons are on a whole different level from the ones on the lower floor. They're stronger, and their reaction speed is way faster. Just dealing with one of them was a huge problem. Now, facing an entire army, after a desperate struggle, Yoshito gets captured by them. Two skeletons pin him down in front of the skeleton priest, but things are far from over. Juji and Mana are still fighting. Juji summons a tornado, which should have wiped the skeletons out, but no, they just keep advancing completely unfazed. The two are quickly surrounded and cornered with no escape route. Yoshito desperately tries to break free from the skeleton's grip. If this keeps up, Juji and Mana will die before he does. But suddenly, Yoshito realizes he should probably be more worried about his own situation. The skeleton priest raises its massive blade and chops off Yoshito's right arm. He lurches forward, clutching the wound in agony. The skeletons restrain Yoshito again, and this time, they go for his left leg. His pain-filled screams echo throughout the chamber. Stop it. Bony hands block Yoshito's vision as the horde swarms him, devouring him like a fresh meal. Yoshito lies on the ground, his body mangled, his breathing faint and shallow. He's never wished for death more than in this moment. The last image seared into Yoshito's mind is the face of the skeleton priest. He lets out a laugh through his tears. Finally, I'm free. Just you wait. I'll be back, and I'll be 100 times stronger. Seeing that Yoshito is finally dead, the skeleton priest lets out a triumphant laugh.